Chapter 2171. Return to the city. Let's run then. Gu Shijie was leading the group while the 12 of them were in the middle. Di Fui was right behind them. The 12 of them had used all their energy to run. Fortunately, they were running at a very high speed. Hence, the bugs did not catch them. However, those monsters were extremely stubborn and did not stop chasing after them. Suddenly, Gu Shijie stopped when she saw a cave in the distance. The rest station was just around the corner, and there were many young kids and old folks there. She could not imagine the consequences if they lured the monsters along. Therefore, she turned around as she grabbed her sword tightly. She was going to fight and kill as many monsters as she could. Before she managed to open her mouth, she realized that the wave of dark shadows paused behind them. To their surprise, the monsters stopped chasing them and only circled at the same spot, making an irritating noise. Countless of red eyes stared at Gu Shijie and the group. However, they did not dare to move forward as though there was a taboo. A moment later, the monsters gathered and formed a big pile of black smoke again and retreated. In just a blink of an eye, there was no sign of them at all. Everyone was sweating from the run, but they finally could heave a sigh of relief. It was indeed a surprise that they managed to escape a fierce battle in such an easy way. There were many wild animals in the forest that had been eaten alive by the bugs. Terrifyingly enough, many of their skeletons were still in a running or fighting posture when the locusts bit them. Looks like there is something the monsters fear about in the cave. Zhao Fengxing wiped away his sweat on his forehead. Gu Shijie suddenly thought about the red mist in the valley. Perhaps, the monsters were afraid of the creature? She was surprised that the rest station was an unknown safe house. Thus, it might be a good place for them to settle down if they could not enter the city. However, that was not her primary plan. Although the rest station was free from the bugs, there was no cover or shade. The villagers had nowhere to hide when the blood rainfall comes. Hence, they had to go to the city. Gu Shijie and the group finally passed through the cave and saw the villagers. Before Gu Shijie had left the village earlier, she instructed the villagers not to leave the rest station despite their curiosity. The patriarch managed to keep them all at bay. Only Tai Dan and Tai Nyo were anxiously keeping their eyes on the entrance, and finally heaved a sigh of relief when they saw Gu Shijie return. Gu Shijie brought the 12 of them to see the patriarch, and everyone was generally very happy. Since 12 more people were joining the team, they had higher hopes of making it to the city. The next morning, everyone began to leave the rest station after sunrise to depart to Luohua City according to Gu Zijie's plan. The number of monsters was indeed lesser during the day, coupled with the protection from so many experts. All the ferocious beasts were easily defeated. Finally, they have arrived at Luohua City during sunset. As the villagers looked at the high green wall at the entrance and the soldiers that surrounded it, they cried and shed their tears of joy. Males and females below 30 years old are allowed to enter the city. We are sorry, but for the adults above 30 years old, Luohua City does not have extra food for incapable people. That was what the guard said with an icy tone, as if pushing the villagers who have struggled to come here into the hell. Luohua City was secured with a circle of very tall walls. The gate was made of solid metals, which made it exceptionally strong. The metals would remain rust-free even after years of exposure to the air. Moreover, it had the ability to work like a magnet to attract all the weapons of the intruders. Both sides of the gate were tightly sealed at the moment. There was only a small entrance visible in the corner. Only one person could enter at a time. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. There was a wide and deep river surrounding the city walls. Instead of being a moat filled with water, it contained fiery red molten lava that would melt the skin and bones of anyone who unfortunately fell into the river. When Gu Zijie's group approached the city wall, it was already late in the evening, and the place was getting dark very rapidly. Right behind them, wild beasts were growling loudly as the night started to fall upon them. On top of the walls, guards were looking down at them from above, as if looking at a group of beggars. Go, leave. Our city will only accept people with great strength or special ability. Beggars are not welcomed here. You should leave now. The clan leader was not ready to give up. He took 2 courageous steps forward and said, "Sir, with all due respect, we used to be the citizens of Luohua City. However, we were trapped in the outskirts due to some unfortunate incident. We are simply returning now. I do not care who you are. If you wish to enter, you must have the spiritual crystals. 1 crystal for every 20 entries, not a stone less." The unscrupulous guards tempted to harass these villagers with ragged clothes. They also did not believe that these people would be able to offer any spiritual crystals. Indeed, the clan leader had nothing to offer. Di Fui was still out there hunting. Last night, after making sure that Gu Shijio and the rest of the people were in safe hands, he left promptly after a short rest. All alone, he ventured into the dangerous land to obtain the spiritual crystals. This morning, Gu Shijio started escorting the villagers. About 10 miles away from the city, they realized that there were fewer greens. The more they approached the city, the milder the beasts they encountered. Hence, there was barely any danger left in the journey. There were many experts, Zhao Fengxing for example, to secure the perimeter. Gu Shijio was worried for Di Fui, for it was already late in the evening and he had yet to return, so she gave the villagers a few reminders and left to search for her man. Therefore, the clan leader was the one who took the lead at the moment. Zhao Fengxing was at the back of the troop, initially. Upon hearing the fuss at the walls, he stepped forward and looked up confidently at the guards. "Don't worry. We will present the spiritual crystals to you, not one less." Zhao Fengxing had seen the way Di Fui and Gu Shijio fought in battles, so he was confident about their return with the crystals. The guard at the city gate recognized Zhao Fengxing. He had been here at the gate with his men a few days ago. The guard gave him a suspicious look and started judging. "When did you start mixing around with these beggars? Are you trying to use these beggars to gain our sympathy to let you into the city, because you have failed to obtain the spiritual crystals? Let me tell you, there is no chance at all." Zhao Fengxing refused to argue with these arrogant guards. He retrieved a red crystal from his bag. "We already have one." The glistening red stone shone with great luster. The guard took a careful look at the crystal and said, "All right, you are capable. All 12 of you may enter, but not the rest of the group." "Didn't you say that 1 stone could permit the entry of 20 people?" Zhao Fengxing questioned. "Right, you can pick 8 people from this group of beggars to come in with you." Zhao Fengxing heaved a sigh of relief before selecting 20 women and children to enter the city. These people were generally weaker, so they eagerly needed a place to rest after a long, dreadful day of travel. Chapter 2173. A group of beggars, too surprisingly, the guard went against his words after seeing the selection of the first 20 people. Even with the spiritual crystal, only the adults within the permitted age range can enter. All men below the age of 50 and women below the age of 30 are allowed to come. The elders and the children below 12 years of age are not welcome. The city has no place for useless people. The guard started insulting them. The people were startled by his hurtful demand. Out of all the people there, about half the troop was in the permitted range. There were about 30 women above 30 years of age and 30 children below 12 years of age. These people were either the parents of the strong, eligible men or their children. If abandoned, they would have no chance of survival. Soon, some people started sobbing helplessly. Some of the elders were furious. The children held on tightly to their parents' clothes, as they were too afraid to be abandoned. Meanwhile, the clan leader was obviously infuriated. "What kind of rule is this? How can you be so ruthless to these innocent people? Where is the governor of the city? I want to meet the governor." The guard gave him a laugh. "Our governor is a man of nobility. A beggar like you is not entitled to meet someone as noble as him." The guard then demanded impatiently, "Are you going to come into the city? Make your decision now. The gate will be completely closed in an hour. You will not be able to enter, even if you change your mind." Zhao Fengxing looked up and saw the signs of red clouds emerging amidst the darkness. As soon as these red clouds gathered, the rain of blood would fall. The rainwater was not corrosive like acids that could erode anything once touched. Instead, it was more like a disease. A droplet would cause the skin to rot. The worst part was that it was incurable. The only way to avoid contact was to hide in a deep cave. Furthermore, it is preferable that each individual still shield their bodies with a layer of enchanted animal skin to be completely safe from the rain. Zhao Fengxing predicted that the blood rain would start pouring in an hour. He could not help but look into the distant woods and wonder why the duo had not shown up. If they were here, they would probably figure something out. Fortunately for the villagers, Zhao Fengxing was someone with personal loyalty for his friends. After a brief discussion with his junior apprentices, they announced proudly, "We will either go or stay behind together with these villagers. We will not enter the city at the moment. I am the son of the governor, Hua Jichuan. About a century ago, I left to hunt with a group of friends, and we were unfortunately trapped in the depths of the valley. These people are the descendants of my friends. If you tell the governor about my identity, I believe that he will let us in." The clan leader finally uncovered his family background. He could tell that these men from the city were well equipped with spiritual power. With the support of spiritual power, one's lifespan could be greatly increased. As the governor of the city, his father used to have his spiritual power at level 7, who happened to be the man with the greatest power in the city at the time. He was expected to live up to 500 years. Before Hua Jichuan left the city, the old governor was only 50 years old. His father would be 180 years old by now, so he should be around and was most probably the present governor of the city. His father loved him very much as a child. If he knew about the return of his beloved son, he would definitely let everyone else in. Nonetheless, the guard gave him a sarcastic reply. "I do not care if you are called Hua Jichuan or Yi Jichuan. I have never heard of any of your names." He gave Hua Jichuan another judgmental look before adding another scornful remark. "From your old and shady look, I think you are more than 100 years old. Our governor is a young man at the peak of his youth. How can he possibly have a son as old as you? If you want to lie, you have to lie properly. Moreover, our governor's surname is not Hua." Chapter 2174. A Group of Beggars 3. Hua Jichuan was shocked. "Isn't the governor Hua Fengshu?" Hua Fengshu was his father's name. "Of course not. Let me tell you. The name of our governor is Yi Huiling, also known as Governor Yi." Hua Jichuan could not process the name of that complete stranger. In fact, he had never heard of him. He did not know that someone else replaced the governor of the city. What about his father, then? Where is the old governor Hua Fengshu? Hua Jichuan needed to find out. The guard rolled his eyes in impatience and said, "How would I know? He is probably long dead. I have been here for more than 80 years, and I have never heard about Hua Fengshu." Hua Zikin's face darkened. Perhaps his father was already long gone. Hua Fengshu used to be the pride of the entire city. Everyone knew about him and treated him with respect, as if he were a savior to the people. He never knew that his father would end up long gone. Hua Jichuan was obviously devastated by the sudden news. He stood, trembling. Chen Chao quickly supported him to make sure he stood steadily. Annoyed, she took a look at the men on top of the walls. "Clan leader, why don't we fight our way in? We cannot abandon our uncles, our aunts, our grandparents and our children," she suggested in a hoarse voice. Hua Jichuan observed the men from below and shook his head in disapproval. "We shall not fight. There are weapons everywhere along the wall. Once triggered, the arrows will be released." There were many secret openings along the walls, and there was one archer behind every opening with his bow and arrows ready. Moreover, they had not let the bridge down to connect them across the river. There was no way they could fight their way in. The guards on the city wall were brutal. Hua Jichuan and his men tried to negotiate politely with them, but to no avail. Instead, they became more and more impatient. "I am not interested in this discussion whatsoever. Leave. Leave now. If I hear another word, I shall release the arrows." Swiftly, many arrows could be seen aiming at them from the secret openings. The tip of the arrows was dark blue, indicating that it was obviously poisoned. Under the circumstance, the villagers dared not move. Zhao Fengxing and his men decided to keep their grounds, too. Minutes ticked by. Soon 15 minutes had passed. Difui and Gu Shijie were still nowhere to be seen. The villagers were starting to worry. They did not know how long they were going to wait for their return. Just when they were anxiously waiting, they heard someone running toward them from the woods. In the blink of an eye, they saw about 20 men running through clouds of dust. Not far behind, hundreds of wild animals that looked somewhat mutated were also running toward them. There were lions, tigers, and bears. These wild animals were double the size of how they usually were, and charged with great ferocity. Their speed was unusually fast, causing gusts of wind along their way. "We have the spiritual crystals. Open the gate. Open it now." The leader shouted out loud to the men on top while raising the red crystals in the air to prove his words. These men had obviously been through a tough time to obtain the spiritual crystals. Many of them were injured with bloodstains all over their clothes. The guards could see the crystal clearly. With a wave, he commanded for the release of the bridge. While the bridge was slowly dropping, the wild animals were already in close proximity. Fortunately, the 20 men had good kung fu. Before the bridge was fully released, they took a leap into the air and landed on the bridge. Quickly they ran towards the city. Chapter 2175. A group of beggars. 4. The wild animals knew that they could not reach the 20 men, so they decided to change targets. Instantly, they lunged towards the helpless villagers that waited for their entry at the gate. The villagers were scattered. While waiting, some decided to stand, others took their seats. Upon seeing the beasts approaching, they panicked. The beasts were smart enough to tell which ones were the weaker ones. Therefore, most of the beasts chose to attack women and children. Tai Dan, Tai Nio, and their men were eager to save their family from the attack, so they fought the beasts to the best of their abilities to keep them away. Nonetheless, they were obviously outnumbered by the abundance of ferocious beasts surrounding them. Even with the help of Zhao Fengxing and his men, they were not able to keep everyone safe. The villagers were in a frenzied state to stay alive. The children were crying. The adults were screaming for help. It was complete chaos. Some were too nervous to care about which way to run. They ran towards the suspension bridge that was still slowly moving down. "You are not allowed on the bridge." A voice came from the top of the walls. Instantly, the guard commanded the release of an arrow, and it almost hit the foot of the first man. "I will kill anyone who steps foot on the bridge." The command of the guard was very alarming. Apparently, they were not willing to give in. After the entry of the 20 men with the spiritual crystal, the guard raised the bridge back up. Upon seeing their hopes slowly disappear, the villagers grew even more anxious. The array formation. Get back into formation. Zhao Fengxing was the only one with a clear mind at the time. The villagers recalled the array formation that they used during their escape from the valley, and quickly scrambled back into formation. Unfortunately, since they were being attacked, it was difficult for them to do so. Zhao Fengxing and his men managed to slaughter a few beasts, but they were incapable of killing all of them. Helplessly, Zhao Fengxing watched as a lion pushed a child onto the ground, and was about to dig its teeth into the child's throat. The adults around the child were busy fighting off the beasts, so none of them was able to rescue the child in time. Before the lion took its first bite, a shadow quickly flashed by and gave the lion a hard kick. The lion must have weighed a ton, but its heavy body floated in the air for a while before crashing into another tiger. Both hit the ground and rolled away. The child barely escaped death, so he was still suffering from shock. Astonished, he then started crying out loud, "Brother Stone! Brother Stone!" Hope returned to the villagers. Their eyes glistened with happy tears. "Stone! Brother Stone! Brother Stone, you are finally back!" The rescuer who just emerged was Gu Shijio, but she was not alone. Difui was back too. However, he was fighting another beast at the moment. There was no time for chatter, so Gu Shijio made a few swift teleportations and started killing the beasts with the sword in her hand. They worked together perfectly and took down the beasts at every opportunity. The bodies of the slaughtered beasts lay motionless wherever they moved. Almost instantaneously, the beasts were beheaded. In a brief moment, more than half of the beasts were slaughtered. The rest of the beasts knew that the situation was not getting any better for them, so they left frantically. The duo's kung fu was extraordinarily good that even the guards on the wall were impressed. Everyone applauded for Gu Shijio and Di Fui as the beasts made their escape. The villagers also celebrated their survival. Chapter 2176. Entry into the city. Di Fui raised his hand to release 7 spiritual crystals into the air. They floated in a straight line and shone with sparkling light. He looked at the guards at the top of the wall and demanded, "Here are the spiritual crystals. Open the gate." It was the first time that the guards had seen so many spiritual crystals at once. The leader hesitated a little out of jealousy, but he still had to hold on to the same principle. Zhao Fengxing explained the situation to the duo. While he was explaining, many eyes focused intensely on Gu Shijie, as they were hopeful that her presence would change the situation for the better. Frowningly, Gu Shijie looked up into the sky and realized that the rain of blood would fall in half an hour. These people needed to enter the city as quickly as possible. She had made a promise to the deceased elders to make sure that everyone would arrive safely in Luohua City. After a moment of consideration, she took out a huge red crystal from her sleeve. It was 2 times bigger than the size of the ordinary crystals. If the red crystals were third-class gems, this one belonged in the second class. It was very rare to come across this size of crystal. One such crystal was equivalent to 3 ordinary ones. She showed the crystal proudly. "I would like to offer you another second-class gem, in exchange for shelter for all of us." The guard fixed his eyes on the red crystal. He knew the type of gem very well. Hesitantly he answered, "I cannot do so. I did not set the rule. The governor made it. I dare not do as I please. Please invite the governor. I would like to have a word." The guard smirked. "Lady, our governor will not simply see anyone. It is not easy for you to meet him. Unless what?" Di Fui interrupted coldly, and the guard was taken by surprise. The city guard was used to acting arrogantly. He was not highly positioned, but he bore an important responsibility. Everyone who entered or left the city must act according to his conditions. The people had to ingratiate with him in order to have a smooth journey. He was not afraid of anyone, except for a few members of the city's noble people. He gave Di Fui a lewd expression. "The governor has always been very considerate to beautiful women. The lady here is obviously very attractive. If she agreed to spend a night with the governor, he would probably..." Before he could finish, a hard slap in his face stopped him from making any offensive remarks. The figure of a man flashed before his eyes and slapped him so hard that he hit the floor. It could have easily sent him down the wall. The intruder obviously did not hold back his strength. Hence, the guard was caught in a daze after the slap. Dizzy, with his eyes blurred, all he could hear was a buzzing in his ears. Then blood started oozing out from the corners of his mouth. The guard was surrounded by many of his men, but no one noticed the attacker. When they finally realized it, the guard was already in a daze. They had never expected that someone was brave enough to attack their leader. Driven by a sense of anxiety and indignation, they started surrounding the man in a defensive manner. The man raised his arm and put a sword across the guard's neck. "What were you saying? Would you like to repeat?" The voice of the man was soft as if conversing, but the guard was overwhelmed in insecurities from the icy tone of his voice. He had to surrender under the pressure of the sword on his neck. He tried very hard to focus on the appearance of the intruder. The man was in purple robes, with his face concealed under a mask. The guard could only see the man's dark eyes through the holes. At this very moment, his eyes were bent, as if smiling. The guard was expecting the intruder to be glaring at him with a serious face. Instead, the man gave him a warm smile in return. The sword was still hanging on the guard's neck, however. Slowly, but surely, he started to feel the sword cutting through his flesh. The skin on his neck was slashed open, and blood emerged. As seconds passed, the pain became more and more unbearable. The whole process was as though someone was cutting meat with a blunt knife. It was slow but surely painful and frightening. The guards were shocked to the core. Their leader was in the hands of the intruder, so his followers dared not take another step forward. "Don't you do anything to him," they verbally warned. "The guard is the cousin of the governor. If he is hurt, your life will not be spared. Let him go. Release him now." The shouting continued. The guard was trembling in fear, but he still refused to keep his voice down. "I bet that you dare not do anything to me. Suddenly he could not continue speaking. The sword buried another inch deeper into his neck. With the slightest movement in the right direction, the man's aorta would be slashed open. By then, his life would be surely gone. What do you want? The guards finally gave in. Open the gate and let everyone through, Difui answered slowly. The guard's face was as pale as a sheet, but he decided to give his one last try. I cannot do so. You see, can you see the archers at the wall? If you do not let me go, they will kill everyone down there. A few moments ago, he gave the archers a secret code to signal them. The archers responded immediately, and were all in their respective positions. All their bows were armed with arrows. With a wave, the archers would release their arrows and kill every life on the ground. These archers were the best of the best in the city. Their precision and accuracy were, without a doubt, the best. The innocent villagers who did not have any armor were easy targets for them. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Difui took a look at the bows of the archers and gave the guard another delightful smile. Take a look at your so-called archers. Are there any arrows on their bows now? The guard and his men were caught by surprise. Difui gave the guard a hand to help him turn around and observe the archers that he was so proud of. After a quick look, his expression changed instantly. A shadow had passed each and every archer. Everywhere the shadow was, a cry of horror burst forth. Soon, all the arrows were taken away. The shadow that stole their arrows moved too quickly for the archers to react. They could not even see the figure properly. The one who stole their arrows was certainly Wuxia. At this moment, she was standing casually on the edge of the wall, with a bundle of steel arrows in her hands. Let the people in, she demanded authoritatively. The guard was finally concerned about his safety. I will now send someone to notify the governor. If he agrees, I will let these people in at once. Wuxia observed the sky and realized that the downpour of the blood rain would occur in less than 15 minutes. The act of notifying the governor was only a waste of time. There was not enough time for his man to go to and fro. The guard was obviously trying to waste their time. Did he take the lives of the innocent as a joke? Difui gave him another smile and started putting more pressure on the sword. You can either open the gate now or get killed immediately before I open the gate myself. Which one would you choose? I am not in the mood for this conversation. On the count of 3, if you have not decided, I will decide for you. 1, 2, let them in. Let them in. Release the suspension bridge. The guard could not win the argument, so he quickly gave the orders to his men. The bridge was once again released, and the gates were wide open. More than 100 villagers ran across the bridge to enter the city as their refuge. After the entry of the villagers into the city, there were only 5 minutes left before the downpour. Difui kept his sword and tapped the guard on his shoulder with the back of his blade. Do not attempt to mess this up. Otherwise, I will give you a hard time. The intruder was too unpredictable, so there was no way one could guard against him. The guard could not care less about these people at the moment. He quickly commanded, "Close the gates. Open up the protective shelter. Now." The soldiers on the wall were well trained. Quickly, they fell back into their positions and started carrying out their duties. The bridge was raised, and the gates were shut. Some soldiers took control of some secret mechanisms to unleash a beam of white light that soon spread out like fleeting clouds. The scattered light started to move towards the city center to shield the entire area. A few moments later, light from varying directions covered up the entire city in a dome shield. Soon after the formation of the light dome, drops of blood rain that were as big as the size of a coin started pouring down. The rain hit the wizardry barrier in the shape of a light dome and slipped off its surface like an umbrella. Traces of blood were left behind, making the shield look somewhat terrifying. When the raindrops fell on the shield, the cracking sound was grating on the ear. Also, the dome shook unsteadily as a result of the downpour. It was a worrying sight. The villagers had just entered the city and were given the opportunity to witness the occurrence, so they all stood to gaze at the sky. Wuxia was busy observing her surroundings. She found the city rather odd. The buildings were mostly in the shape of a Mongolian yurt with wedge-shaped structures. The sizes of the yurts varied. Along the streets, there were shops. Generally, the buildings were quite glamorous. Different shops supplied different needs, for example, weapons, clothing, and daily necessities. Most of the shops that could be found anywhere else in the mortal world were present. Due to the odd appearance of the outsiders, many citizens filled the streets just to satisfy their curiosity. However, Gushijou also realized that these citizens did not dress very well. Most of the people had very ordinary garments made of coarse clothes, unlike the clan leader's description of the city, where more than half of the people could afford to dress glamorously and ride in the best carriages. What she saw appeared to be the exact opposite. He said that the people in the city lived and worked in peace and contentment. The people here, however, did not seem to lead a very good life. Most of the people looked tired, and their hands looked rough. Certainly there were some rich men too, like the owners of the shops. Most of them were covered in silk and satin. Their faces had a healthy glow. Gushijou was observant enough to see that all these bosses seemed to be dressing up in the same style, as if they were working for another superior leader. A few beautiful women who were finely dressed surrounded these men. Some dressed up quite ordinarily but were attractive enough to catch the men's attention. The women did not look very comfortable though. There was a sense of terror in their eyes, like a group of frightened, helpless deer. Gushijou watched as a woman stepped carelessly onto one of the men's foot, and was kicked harshly away. The woman did not even voice a sound. Unsteadily, she picked herself up and bowed before the man while knocking her head onto the solid ground to ask for his forgiveness. The man gave her another kick and demanded, "Go away." The woman hit the ground again with her head, but was too scared to stand. She crawled and begged in a trembling voice, "Please, please don't send me away." Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The bossy man gave her a hiss before raising his foot to the woman. "Use your face to clean up the dirt." The woman was surprised, but she did it anyway. Still trembling, she obeyed his order and started cleaning the dirt on his shoes with one side of her cheek. Soon, her soft face was covered in different streaks of dust and dirt. Chapter 2179. The arrival of the governor. The man finally forgave her. He then threw a handkerchief at her and demanded, "Lousy woman, you'd better clean up your face. What a disgusting look." Gushijou could not contain her anger. Her fingers clenched in frustration, and she was ready to confront the rude man. The woman beside Gushijou quickly stopped her and warned, "Lady, stay out of trouble. These bosses are the men of the governor. If you get yourself involved in things that you should not be involved, you will be sent out of the city." Death was the only outcome if anyone was sent out of the city. Therefore, the people here chose to endure hardship even in the worst conditions. Gushijou took another look at life in the city. There were blacksmiths forging irons tirelessly. In the small building next to the workshops, some were busy weaving them. These workers dressed in the simplest way. They worked hard with their heads down while focusing completely on their work. Along the streets, soldiers patrolled the area every now and then. The segregation of their social statuses could be told apart based solely on the way the people dressed. The workers were the people of the lowest status in society. On the other hand, the soldiers were a class higher than the common people. Meanwhile, the leaders of the soldiers were in the upper class while their bosses were in the special upper class. The guard had suffered a great loss in pride under Defuy's life-threatening sword. He wanted to take his revenge, but unfortunately, Defui fed him with a pill before releasing him and warned him not to do anything reckless. Otherwise, he would have to suffer another painful lesson. The wound on the guard's neck required immediate medical attention, so revenge was not his priority. After giving commands to protect the city, he quickly left to treat his wound. Instead of having to handle the leader of the guards, the newcomers were greeted by another group of people. "Newcomers can come here to register yourselves." Some people started shouting in the streets. Soon, hundreds of soldiers emerged from the domed buildings behind the shops. They started surrounding the newcomers in a circle. Defui was astonished by these soldiers' spiritual power. He could tell from their appearance that their spiritual power was actually quite strong, at least at level 3 and above. The strongest one was the leader, who was already at level 4.5. The junior apprentices of Zhao Fengxing were at level 3 or so. Only Zhao Fengxing's spiritual power was more advanced. He was already at level 4. In the upper bound, these soldiers would not even be qualified to be servants. However, in the Shura world, where spiritual power was scarce, these men's spiritual power was considered as extraordinary. These soldiers pushed the newcomers forcefully into one of the yards, like herdsmen leading their animals into the stalls. Go. Go in there. Do as you are instructed. The lady who gave Gu Shijio a word of advice back then was actually a cleaner, who looked like a woman in her 40s. After a brief exchange, Gu Shijio was surprised to learn that she was only 24 years old. From the lady, Gu Shijio found out more about the general life in the city. Basically, the governor was the most powerful man in the city with many men of great strengths to help him keep the city in order. Every newcomer would be required to pass a kung fu test. Those who were capable would be assigned to be the governor's followers. These qualified men would be gifted with the company of very beautiful women, glamorous houses, and scrumptious food. As long as they swore their loyalty to the governor, they could have whatever they asked for. The average ones would be assigned to be the soldiers. Their lives, at least, would be free from the concern of food and clothing. On the other hand, normal people would be enslaved and put into different corners. They had to work all day and night. Those who disobeyed them would be punished and die in exile. As for the women, they were the people of the lowest class in society. They would be assigned to different places and become either the concubines or servants of the rich. Their fate depended largely on their physical appearance. The unattractive women would be put in the brothels as prostitutes to provide free services for the soldiers. Any resistance would cost these women the price of either being scolded or being beaten to death publicly while naked. As expected, Gu Shijio was infuriated by the news announcing the arrival of the governor. A loud announcement came from afar. Soon, the people got onto their knees and bowed before him. Gu Shijio and Di Fui did not kneel. Hence, the clan leader and the villagers followed their example. Zhao Fengxing pondered for a moment and decided to stop his junior apprentices from kneeling as well. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The governor showed up in the most dramatic way that he possibly could. First of all, a light blue ship started sailing through the air in the sky above the city. There was no paddle to propel the body of the ship forward. Instead, it moved across by swinging two giant, wooden wings in the air. 4 young men were standing on the ship. All of them looked very handsome. The young men were seemingly protecting a man in purple robes. The man in purple robes was sitting at a white jade table. There was a set of chess pieces in front of him. With a chess piece in his hand, he looked like he was trying to win the game. Surrounding the ship were 8 celestial cranes, each carrying a lady in a white dress with her face covered under a veil. Some of these ladies were carrying layers of fine gauze in their hands. Others carried flower baskets to spread colorful petals along the way. The flowery scent filled the air long before the ship arrived. Gu Shijio was astonished. In a strange way, she somehow felt that it was a scene that she had witnessed some time before. The experience had definitely left an unforgettable impression on her. She fixed her eyes at the man in purple robes. Due to the distance, she could not really see his face with his head lowered. In a blur, she could only see a glistening red gem hanging somewhere on his head. Her heart started thumping in nervousness. Suddenly, someone caught her hand in a tight grasp. She turned around and met Di Fui's pitch-black eyes. He looked at her with a tight smile before directing an audio message to her. Is he really that good-looking? Are you mesmerized? He was clearly jealous. His act of jealousy came as a heartwarming gesture to Gu Shijio. She leaned closer and responded, I feel that the scene is somewhat familiar to me. Di Fui squinted his eyes. He too felt that everything about the ship looked familiar, but he also found it uncomfortable to look at, like the entire scenario was actually an impersonation. The ship approached quickly and was already in the sky above the city. The ladies on the cranes waved their hands to release a roll of pale purple gauze from above. The soft fabric danced gracefully in the wind before reaching the ground. There, It served as a bridge between the ship and the land. The 4 young men quickly traveled down and landed on the ground. They kneeled before the ship. Welcome the arrival of Governor. The rest of the people followed. Welcome the arrival of Governor. The greeting ceremony was rather impressive. Along the streets, people were all kneeled. Only Gu Shijie and her group were still standing, thus creating a strong contrast. Some soldier approached them and commanded hoarsely, "Why don't you kneel before the governor to welcome his arrival?" Gu Shijie gave him a nonchalant reply. "Is there any rule that says that I must kneel to greet the arrival of the governor?" The soldier was speechless. Such a rule did not exist. What they did was a mere custom that was practiced over the years in society. Gu Shijie possessed a composure that was intimidating to others. Moreover, the soldier had seen how she and Difui fought against the ferocious beasts, so he was well aware that she could easily take his life. Her question left him speechless, for he was concerned that she would kill him. Before the soldier could ask anything more, a voice came from the ship above them. "It is fine. I sympathize with their tragedies. Moreover, they are newcomers, so there is no need for them to follow the customs of Luohua City." His voice was magnetic, but his words sounded unnatural as if carrying a fake accent. Gu Shijie had a strong dislike for it. The spiritual level of this man is already at level 9, so we shall not act impulsively. There are many things about the city that are not right, so we need time to investigate the matters. "Baby, you have to be patient." Difui directed an audio to her. Chapter 2181. The show was overly dramatic. Gu Shijie did not know what to say. Difui kept referring to her as his baby. However, she was also well aware that the man had many weird but practical ideas. Unlike her, the things that she could remember were limited to the events that she had been through over the past 6 months, and nothing more. Hence, she thought that she should listen to him more often. Thus she agreed with him. Nonetheless, she had to tell him how the man in the fluttering robes made her feel. "I do not know why, but I do not like him very much." She found him a little annoying, yet in a familiar fashion. She tried hard to suppress her impulse to take the man down and give him a hard punch. What a coincidence. "I do not like him very much either. Baby, you and I are really meant to be together. Even our thoughts are in sync," Difui answered with a delightful smile. Meanwhile, he could not help but pinch her palm gently. "You and your sweet talking." Gu Shijie made fun of him, when in fact she enjoyed his attention. She also thought that they were very compatible. She then fixed her eyes on their hands that were interlocked in a tight grip. It was heartwarming, like they had been doing this for many years. She would very much like to hold his hand for the rest of their lives. Therefore, they held their hands and watched the man as he continued to make his grand entrance. The man on the ship finally stood up. With a leap, he slid down the stripe that was waving in the wind. His purple robes were loose, so the soft fabrics danced in the air as he slowly made his way down, like a flag ruffling in the breeze. He looked somewhat elegant and unconventional. In the blink of an eye, he landed safely. However, instead of landing on the ground, he decided to step onto the backs of the 4 young men, who were still kneeling with their heads down. Gu Shijie could finally see the man's face clearly and was surprised. The man had a handsome face with delicate features. His eyebrows were shaped in a perfect arch, complementing his big, bright eyes. He had an attractive smile on his face, and his skin was soft and supple, fairer than any man should possibly be. On his forehead, he was wearing a headband in the shape of a fox's eye. His was as beautiful as a lady, in fact. There was a soft feminine quality in his appearance. The man was the governor, also known as Yiling. After he landed, the 8 ladies subsequently got down from the floating ship. Quickly, they covered the ground with the petals before he stepped forward. Soon, all these ladies lay on the ground one by one, forming a line. Their white dresses formed a very strong contrast to the purple petals that glittered the land. From the back of the 4 young men, he took a step forward and stepped on the leg of the first lady in white. He slowly continued and stepped over her entire body. He then stepped onto the second lady, and the process continued. Gu Shijie was speechless. The show was overly dramatic. He did not respect these people at all. Despite her frustration, Gu Shizhou still had a feeling that the governor was actually an impersonation of someone else with the same purple robes and fox-eye headband. She was too sure that she knew the man. Yi Ling walked slowly towards the duo and stopped about 2 meters away from them. Suspiciously, he stared at them before questioning their identity. "Are you the leaders of the villagers?" "I am one of the villagers," Gu Shizhou answered in an icy tone. Yi Ling gave her a half-smile and said, "You certainly do not look like one. Your appearance is clearly different from them." He then took another look at Di Fui and asked, "Who is this?" "My fiancé," Gu Shizhou answered him loudly and clearly. Yi Ling squinted his eyes in disbelief. He observed Di Fui thoroughly and was offended. Di Fui only stood casually, but the man seemed to possess a greater aura than he did, even in a casual posture. Chapter 2182. A warning to others. The stranger intimidated him. "Governor." The city guard suddenly emerged and greeted him. He kneeled and bowed before Yi Ling again. "Governor, you have to help me," he pleaded with eyes full of sympathy. Yi Ling was obviously puzzled. "What is the problem?" The guard immediately pointed at Gu Shizhou and Di Fui and said, "They are the ones. I was doing my duties according to the laws of Luohua City and forbade entry of the elders, the women, and the children. However, they decided to threaten me. He put a sword on my neck to make me open the gate. It almost cost my life." He then showed the bandage on his neck. The bandage was stained with blood and was quite a horrible sight. Yi Ling turned to look at the rest of the soldiers from the wall and questioned them. Is what he said true? The soldiers dared not tell any lies, so they all agreed. An eloquent man among the soldiers even described the entire scenario vividly to let the governor know what had really happened. Yi Ling listened attentively with a smile and never interrupted. When the man was finally done, he let out a sigh. "Now I know what happened." He gave the leader of the guards a wave and told him to come forward. "Come here. Let me look at your wound." The guard approached him in a panic and quickly revealed the wound under the bandage. The wound was a sight of gore. "Governor, please take a look at this." "Indeed, the wound is quite severe." There was a sympathetic tone in the governor's voice. Exactly. "Governor, please take revenge for me. On behalf of your cousin." The guard clenched his fist in indignation. Meanwhile, he gave Di Fui and Gu Shizhou a look to show his satisfaction about the consequences that they were about to face. Gu Shizhou avoided eye contact, but she was still worried. The people around the governor all possessed great kung fu. Even the worst one was at level 6. As a result of the governor's arrival, many soldiers had to secure the perimeter around him as a safety precaution. There were thousands of men standing quietly, just waiting for an order. Gu Shizhou and the rest of the villagers were surrounded. If it were only Di Fui and Gu Shizhou alone, they had absolutely nothing to worry about. In the worst-case scenario, they could just teleport. There was no chance that the soldiers could even reach them. However, they had to take care of the villagers who stood behind them. These people did not know enough kung fu to protect themselves. The helpless villagers were merely easy targets for the group of soldiers who possessed high levels of spiritual power. Gu Shizhou was concerned about the governor's motive. If he intended to harm the villagers, she would teleport along with Di Fui to hold the governor captive. She maintained her composure, but secretly, she was all prepared. If anything went slightly wrong, she would make the first move. The villagers' safety was her most significant concern at the moment. Di Fui held her hand in a tight grasp, so he could certainly tell that she was sweating in nervousness. "Don't worry. The guard is about to get very unlucky," he directed an audio to her. Just relax and watch the show." Di Fui gave her a tight smile as if he already saw it coming. Yi Ling's fingers were gracefully thin with well-trimmed nails. All his nails were sharply shaped, like the nails of a woman. At this very moment, his fingers lingered across the wound on the guard's neck. "The wound is deep enough to slash your aorta open, isn't it?" Yes, it is a near miss." The guard was still frightened. "Did you let them in because your life was threatened?" Yi Ling continued. Chapter 2183. A warning to others too. Yes, there was nothing I could do. "We are very fortunate," Yi Ling sighed. Before the guard made any comment, he added, "We are very fortunate that Miss Gu and her followers are here to seek refuge. Just imagine the consequence if they were the enemies and you opened the gate for them. Would you risk everybody else's life in the city just because your life was threatened?" The guard did not know what to answer. "My cousin," he stammered. Intuitively, he felt threatened and was ready to get away from Yi Ling's reach. However, Yi Ling's fingers never left his neck. He failed to escape Yi Ling's grasp. Instead, his sudden retreat allowed Yi Ling to bury his sharp nails deeply into his wound. The wound burst open, with blood flowing all over Yi Ling's fingers. However, he did not take his fingers out of the wound. Instead, he buried his nails even deeper. The guard was terrified and in pain. Panic filled his eyes. "My cousin brother, please spare my life on Madame Yun's behalf," he pleaded. After that, he could not speak of another word. The nails finally penetrated through the aorta on his neck and reached the airway in his throat, thus blocking air from reaching the lungs. The guard gasped for air, but still could not breathe. Yi Ling took his hand back and let the guard fall to the ground. Blood flowed out of the wound continuously. He was about to die for sure. Soon, he was dead on the ground with his eyes wide open, seemingly in disbelief that his own cousin brother would sentence him to death in such a brutal way. The soldiers were not expecting this sight of gore. They held their breaths in utter shock. There was dead silence in a plaza filled with thousands of people. Not a single sound was made. Yi Ling slowly wiped the blood away on one of the lady's dresses. He then put his fingers into the lattice mouth and demanded, "Clean this for me. I get dizzy when I see blood." The lady did not answer. She did as told and cleaned his finger with her mouth full of saliva. A few moments later, Yi Ling took his fingers back and observed them under the light. His nails were as clean as before without any traces of blood. He took a look at the people inside. There is no place in the city for this man, who cared for nothing but saving his own life. Although he was my beloved cousin, I had to sentence him to death for violating the law. He took another look at the dead body and shook his head in disapproval. He was, after all, my cousin. I cared for him the most, but what he did was really unexpected. I was truly heartbroken, but still, I had to uphold the importance of our laws. There was no choice for me. With his death, all his mistakes shall be redeemed. Send some men to give him a grand funeral." "Yes, sir." The 4 men approached and carried the body away. Yi Ling blew his fingers dry before taking another look at the people. "Remember, you may lose your life, but never your integrity. Are you clear?" "Yes, Governor. The law should not be taken lightly." The people answered in unison while trembling in fear. They knew how well Yi Ling used to treat the guard. If he was not afraid to severely punish someone he cared about, the rest of the people were going to be treated the same as well, if not worse. Gu Shijio seemed impressed by what she had witnessed. Her facial expression certainly seemed to suggest so. The newcomers looked at each other, not knowing what to do. They were anxious about their safety since the governor seemed like such a ruthless man. The laws of Luohua City forbade elders, women, and children from coming into the city. After the guard's death sentence, would they be sent away for breaching the law? Chapter 2184. Felt as though his eyes lurking at her like a predator, Gu Shijio quickly looked at the sky and realized that it was still raining blood. Intuitively, she gripped her sword tightly in her hand. "Lady, please do not panic. Although the laws must not be taken lightly, I was the one who made the laws. Certainly, there are ways that I can negotiate with you." Gu Shijio was perplexed. "How?" Yi Ling looked at her smilingly and seductively. "If you manage to get a Class 1 spiritual crystal, I will make the decision to let all of you stay." Gu Shijio was surprised by the offer. It was certainly achievable and rather simple. With a sigh, she agreed. "Okay." She and Difui had found a Class 1 spiritual crystal before, but they had completely absorbed its power. Otherwise, she could have satisfied his request immediately. She looked up and saw Yi Ling's intense eyes staring at her. Gu Shijio felt as though his eyes were lurking at her like a predator. She looked him straight in the eye and said, "Governor, are you going to send us to hunt for the Class 1 spiritual crystal now?" "Of course not." Yi Ling gave her a warm smile. You can wait until the rain stops. As long as you can get the crystal back within 3 days, it is fine. You and the gentlemen here look like people of great talents. I am a man who appreciates the talents of others. He flicked his finger to summon his men. Clear out the residential area around the south and let these people stay there. After all that they have been through, they must be exhausted. Yes, Governor. His men attended to his order quickly. Gu Shijie was certainly not expecting for him to grant them a chance of survival. Perhaps, the man really did appreciate talents very much. In fact, the man was found to be less annoying than she thought he would be, so she thanked the governor for his kindness. Yi Ling gave her another gentle look in the eye and said lovingly, "You are welcome, Miss Gu. Should you require my help, you can look for me at Fenghe Cottage." He turned and stepped onto the ladies' bodies to return to where the ship docked. "Summon the ship," he said lazily. The ship that had been hanging around in the air approached him slowly. Yi Ling took out an umbrella and spun the handle around with his palm. The umbrella started spinning and carried him up to the ship that was floating in the air. He had a great body. So many of his actions were found to be very extraordinary to the ordinary people. They would cheer for him no matter what he did. Usually, the ladies could hardly keep their eyes off him. After he landed, he took a seat at the front and looked at the people from above. Quietly, he was trying to enjoy the ladies' attention. To his dismay, the ladies were not attracted to him this time. They were all looking at the man in purple robes standing next to Gu Shijie. Yi Ling then took a look at his own robes that were decorated with many complex patterns. Silver threads were used to embroider the smooth patterns of a wave. On top of the wavy patterns, there was another piece of embroidery depicting the lively shape of a dragon. It was obviously of the finest quality. He chose the best embroidery to match with the best fabrics. Every time he put on his robes, he felt like a king who was overlooking his kingdom. He also thought that he was the only one who could carry the color purple. Any other man with the same purple robes looked just like a failed impersonation. Others were definitely not born with the same grace as his, so he never actually forbade the use of purple robes among the common people. If others wore the same color as him, he would still be the attractive one. To his surprise, the stranger in purple robes replaced him as the center of attention. The purple robes that the man was wearing did not showcase any complex embroidery patterns. Instead, it was merely loose and comfortable clothing. However, the man was able to carry the style very well. The color of the fabric was as bright as the beautiful tones of the dusking sky. It matched the man very well as if he was born to wear it. When Yi Ling stood before him, he felt as if an impersonation of the man. The feeling made him very uncomfortable. After all, he was the governor of the entire city. The man was totally incomparable to him. He had tried very hard to showcase his power as a governor. He thought that he had successfully outshone the man with his charm, but the current situation had proven otherwise. Carefully, he observed Di Fui with squinted eyes. An overwhelming sense of insecurity started to haunt him. If he could control the man, there was always a way to put the man to great use. If not, he would try every way to get rid of him. A sudden idea occurred to him. He leaned down from the edge of the ship and looked at the clan leader. "I heard that someone claimed to be the son of the previous governor. Could that be you?" The clan leader's face turned pale. Hesitantly, he answered, "It was." Yi Ling gave him another smile and said, "After a century, I am sure that things are not how they used to be anymore. Am I right? Especially the position of the governor." Hua Jichuan gave him another look of disappointment before agreeing to him. "Yes." Yi Ling was satisfied. Sarcastically, he responded with a tone of delight. "Regardless of your identity, I will show you some respect for the sake of Miss Gu. I now grant you the gift of the Feng Shui Temple in the southern part of the city." Hua Jichuan did not know what to answer, so he kept silent. Finally, Yi Ling left with his ship. The sky was still pouring drops of blood. Occasionally, bloody red bats appeared to be diving from the sky and fell onto the grayish wizardry barrier before bouncing off. The sound of heavy raindrops was indeed very distracting. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The rain was something really normal for the people here though. Some of them had been living in the city for years, so they were not concerned about it. Their lives continued undistracted. However, for the villagers who had just escaped from the valley, it was their first time witnessing such a strange occurrence. Many of them found it very frightening. Taidan made his way to Gu Shijio and asked, "Brother Stone, do you think that the bats are powerful?" Gu Shijio answered him smilingly, "Why don't you go out there and fight them?" Taidan touched his nose awkwardly and kept his mouth shut. Somehow he felt that Brother Stone had been quite sarcastic recently. She must have acquired the sarcastic trait from her fiancé. He could not help glare at Difui angrily. No matter where they went, the man would always walk gracefully next to Gu Shijio. He had certainly attracted much attention from the ladies. After their arrival in the city, Taidan also noticed that many people were not as tanned as they were. Many citizens were quite fair-skinned, especially the people of the highest social class in the city. They dressed in exquisite clothing that complemented their light complexion. Even the complexion of the governor was very fair. People would take notice of his high position in the lap of luxury very easily. He did not know that men could actually be so fair-skinned. Moreover, the ladies seemed to prefer men with a lighter complexion. Disappointed, Taidan knew that the villagers were very tanned as compared to the people from the city. Along the way, the citizens looked at them as if a group of uncivilized people. He took a look at the clan leader and noticed the lack of joy from his expression. He did not seem very happy to return home. Instead, he looked concerned. "Clan leader, are you not happy?" Deeply absorbed in his thoughts, the clan leader did not notice the question. Taidan had to repeat the question twice to get his attention. "I am happy." He forced a smile. He looked around and sighed before continuing. "After all, this is where I was born." They passed by a huge mansion on their way. Hesitantly, the clan leader paused to look inside. The greenish copper gate was wide open, and there was a wall made with many bricks of green jade. On the wall, there was a painting depicting a large bird that appeared to be extending its wings in flight. The mansion was obviously occupied. When the clan leader paused to look inside, the 4 guards at the gate quickly dismissed him. "Go away. Go away. This is the residence of the general. It is not meant for people like you." The clan leader did not know what to say. Quietly, he took a few quick steps to catch up with the rest of the villagers. Gu Shijio and Difui were walking behind the rest of the group. Seeing the clan leader walking away at a fast pace gave Gu Shijio a sense of bewilderment. Furthermore, the so-called residential area on the southern part of the city was more like a slum. Shabby tents were raised right next to one another. At the entrance, many things were placed in a mess. The people there appeared to be dirty and unkempt. The leader of the soldiers guided them all the way to the core of this heavy populated area and pointed at 30 vacant tents. "The governor is kind enough to have granted you these places to live. You have to learn to appreciate his kindness by working hard and working well." The villagers agreed, and soon, the soldiers left them alone. Chun Chao looked at the small and shabby tents and was unhappy. "These broken houses are not even as good as the ones we once had." Tai Nyo agreed with a frown. "I highly doubt that I can stand up straight in these tents." A man emerged from the tent beside and heard their conversation. "Be grateful for what you have. At least you have a place to stay. Many people in the city sleep in the bushes without a roof." The villagers looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Along their way, they had indeed seen some people sleeping in the streets. "The city is in such a state of poverty," Chun Chao commented. "The city is not. We are the ones in poverty," the man hissed to express his disapproval. He shook his head and quickly entered his tent as if he had just said something he should not have said. Soon the man re-emerged in a hurry. "Where are you going?" Chun Chao was curious. "To work." "Do you really have to work at this hour?" It was already time for dinner. The man did not even look back at her, but he did reply. "People like us are only entitled to sleep for 3 hours a day. We have to work, if not eat, for the rest of the day. Where should we eat? Do we make our own food?" The villagers were famished. They would love to try the food in the city. The man stopped and answered her in all seriousness. We are not allowed to cook our own food. Cooking is only allowed in the kitchen owned by people with the ranking of commanding officer and above. People like us can only get our food from the canteen. Do you have Luohua tickets? You need Luohua tickets to buy food from the canteen. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. The villagers were obviously surprised. They looked at one another helplessly. The man heaved a sigh and took out a crumpled ticket from his pocket. Here you go. This is the ticket for the common people. If you work a full day, you will receive a ticket. The clan leader took it to observe it carefully. The ticket looked somewhat like a piece of banknote. On the ticket, there was a 500 printed on it. How many things can you buy with this ticket? How many things? The man was disappointed. You can only get 3 buns, 3 bowls of porridge, and 2 dishes of pickles. Chapter 2187. Was he trying to humiliate him? So little? How can we be full? You expect to be full? You have very high expectations about this place. It is enough to keep you alive to work. You have just come here, so there will not be any tickets for you. You have to work to stay alive. All right, I really need to go to work. Otherwise, they will deduct my money, the man explained in a hurry. The villagers were disappointed but were too tired to care. 3 or 4 of them had to share a tent, so they placed themselves into small groups and entered their respective tents. The interior was yet another disappointment. The base of the tent was roughly arranged with rows of stones. There was only a thin layer of blanket that looked filthy and uncomfortable. The tent was hot and stuffy and was filled with a strange smell. Luckily, they were highly adaptable to that sort of lifestyle. Although they were disappointed, they could still accept it. Even without Luohua tickets to buy food, they still had some leftovers of dried meat to keep their stomachs filled. They gathered around and were ready to share their food with everybody else like how they used to. However, a few soldiers approached and warned sternly, "You are not allowed to share your food in a group. If you do, I will arrest all of you for attempting to create social disorder." The villagers were utterly shocked but could only suppress their anger. Chun Chao stayed with the clan leader and could not help but express her disappointment. Is this the city life? The living condition is nothing better than what we had in the valley. Grandpa, this place is nothing like the one you shared with us in your stories. The clan leader shook his head too. It was not like this. There was not a man in poverty. The common people all had a place to stay. Maybe not many people could afford to have fancy dishes every day, but they were certainly not hungry. The clan leader's only hope was to guide the villagers out of their sufferings. He wanted all of them to have a peaceful life with plenty of food and warm clothes. Surprisingly, the living condition in the city was even worse than in the valley. The clan leader regretted his decision. Frustrated, he looked at a distant building with his fists clenched. The clan leader was assigned to live in the temple all by himself. It was not spacious, but comfortable enough for one person. It used to be a place for the nuns to carry out their spiritual practice, but is now a temporary home for the clan leader. The decorations remained unchanged even after a century. The clan leader stood in the yard and stared blankly into the distance. Did the governor make the arrangement on purpose? Was he trying to humiliate him? It is a case of a scoundrel realizing his ambition, he said. Clan leader, which scoundrel do you mean? The clan leader was surprised by Gu Zijia's sudden emergence. He sighed without giving her a clear answer. Are you concerned about anything? Not. Nothing. Have you known the governor for a long time? About that. Don't you trust me? No, Shijio. I trust you. The clan leader finally confessed. Shijio, I suspect that the current governor used to be my child servant, you knew. Gu Shijio did not answer. He looks more or less like the child I used to know. However, their auras are different. His arrangement for me to stay in the temple seems like an act of revenge. Gu Shijio sat down on a stool and was ready for a long talk. Let us talk about it. Did you abuse your servant, Yi Nu? No, I treated him well. Chapter 2188. She always knew what others were thinking when Hua Jichuan was still living in the city as the son of the governor. He once saved a child beggar who was almost frozen to death right at the gate of the Feng Shui temple. The child was smart enough to seize the opportunity and asked for a chance to be his servant. In order to persuade Hua Jichuan, he even changed his name to Yi Nu to prove his loyalty to Hua Jichuan. Hua Jichuan agreed to keep the child servant. To the child's benefit, Hua Jichuan had always been very kind to his servants. He never tortured them or gave them a hard time. As for Yi Nu, he treated him especially well, like a brother of his own. Whenever there was something good to eat or to see, he would keep some for the child or invite him over. He would usually take Yi Nu along wherever he went. The old governor was not happy about it, so he often reprimanded Hua Jichuan over his attention for the child. He could see that Yi Nu harbored evil intentions, so it would be best if Hua Jichuan could stay away from the child. However, Hua Jichuan never paid attention. After that, Hua Jichuan went for a hunting trip. He wanted to bring Yi Nu along, but Yi Nu had to run some errands for the old governor, so he missed the trip. The trip lasted for a century, and Hua Jichuan finally returned to a completely new environment. Yi Nu's pinky finger is shorter than normal, so it would be easy to identify him. However, the governor Yi that we met was wearing gloves, so I could not see his pinky finger. Hua Jichuan sighed. If it is really him, I really do not understand why he is doing this to me. I never mistreated him back in those days. If they are not the same person, then perhaps it is just a coincidence that they seem the same. Hua Jichuan could not decide. Gu Shijiu thought about it for a moment. How young is he as compared to you? She suddenly asked. Not much younger, only 5 years. When I found him, he was 8, and I was 13. For 6 years as my servant, I had always treated him like my brother. Never had I seen him as a servant. Perhaps Yi Ling is not Yi Nu. Maybe they only look a little alike. There are no reasons that he should treat me this way. Gu Shijiu tapped the table gently while contemplating. There is nothing strange about this matter. If he really is Yi Nu, he definitely wants to erase all the dark moments in his life to maintain his social credibility as the governor, which is why he does not want to see you. The best way to erase all history was to wipe out anyone who knew about it. Knowing Yi Nu as a man who harbored evil intentions, there was a high possibility that he would kill Hua Jichuan. Perhaps, the purpose of his arrangement to stay alone in the temple was to murder him. Gu Shijiu took a look at the clan leader, who was still confused. She shook her head. The clan leader had been living in the remote valley for too long. Every day was about hunting and sharing the food together with everybody else. His social life was very simple, so he became a little naive. He forgot that people change. The outside world was far more complicated than he thought. Deceit and dishonesty were too common. Fortunately, Gu Shijiu still had her sharp instincts. She always knew what others were thinking. Gu Shijiu was rather happy with how she had put everything together, but suddenly, she paused to contemplate. How did she link everything up so quickly? What kind of person had she always been? She was suddenly curious about her past. A voice interrupted her thoughts. Is Miss Gu here? The governor would like to invite you to see him. Gu Shijiu was bewildered. Why did the ladyboy suddenly invite her? Was he trying to make her leave so that he could carry out his evil plans? Was he going to send his men to murder the clan leader? After some thought, Gu Shijiu left the vicinity. She did not immediately go with the soldiers, however. Instead, she went to see Zhao Fengxing and his men to ask for their secret protection of the clan leader in the temple. Zhao Fengxing agreed, so she left. She wanted to ask Di Fui for help, but he already left to the city center to find out more information about the place. He had not come back yet. Knowing that she was about to attend to the invitation, Zhao Fengxing was worried for her safety. Shijiu, I will go with you, he offered. The governor seemed like an evil man, so he was worried that Gu Shijiu might be harmed. Nonetheless, Gu Shijiu rejected his kind offer. Don't worry. I can go by myself. She could not risk offending the man. After all, she needed to make sure that the villagers had a place to stay, so she had to respond to his invitation. Her kung fu was not as good as the governor, but she could teleport. Also, she was not afraid of any poisons. Therefore, she was not too concerned. At that moment, She wanted to find out if Yi Ling was really Yi Nu. The place was well furnished with jade pieces everywhere that had gold finishing. Scrumptious food was filled at every corner of the table. The place that Yi Ling invited her to go to was a very luxurious restaurant. The waiters of the restaurant were wearing formal clothes. Additionally, they appeared to possess great kung fu as well. As compared to the people who lived in poverty in the outskirts, the life of these waiters could be considered as moderately high standards of living. Find authorized novels in Webnovel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Yi Ling had to show Gu Shijiu his sincerity by ordering all the good food that was rarely available, filling the entire table. When Gu Shijiu finally saw Yi Ling, he was leaning lazily on the railing. Behind him, two beautiful women were busy messaging and fanning him to keep him comfortable. His purple robes shone brightly under the light of the luminous night pearl. Under the glowing light, the dragon embroidery on his robes appeared lively. His dark hair hung loosely, and the fox's eye on his headband shimmered with a flash of red. He rose to acknowledge her arrival smilingly. There was a sense of evilness in his smile. "Miss Gu, I thought that you would bring some men along with you. Please sit." Gu Shijiu sat down across the table and responded politely. "Governor, you have only invited me alone, haven't you? How can I bring others with me?" Yi Ling was impressed. "Not bad, Miss Gu. You are indeed confident." Gu Shijiu answered with a tight smile. "Why did you request to see me? Is there anything that I can help you with?" Yi Ling let out a chuckle. "There is nothing to help. I am curious about you, so we are only here to talk." Gu Shijiu was a good strategist, so she did not mind such an invitation. Yi Ling treated her politely, but with a sense of superiority. Perhaps, he felt that he was above everyone else, as though he was the king of the world. He did not care about the lives of the common people at all. Yi Ling was seated opposite Gu Shijiu and started talking with confidence and composure. He asked about the life of the villagers and where she and Di Fui came from. Gu Shijiu did not answer his questions fully, nor did she tell him about their origins from the upper bound. The circumstance was unclear, so it was best that she played it safe. Under his authority, there were many things that she should not say. She was worried that he would use her words as his weapon. Before she came, she had figured out a series of well-thought answers to entertain his questions. Despite conversing for some time, Yi Ling still failed to extract any useful information from her. Initially, she thought that Yi Ling was insecure about her and Di Fui, and that she would be bombarded with questions about the two of them. Instead, she realized that he was more concerned about the life of the villagers. More accurately, he wanted to know more about the clan leader. Chapter 2190, Forced Marriage 2. Of course, the man was very skilled at asking his questions. If Gu Shijiu was not sharp enough, she might not even know the main point of the conversation. They have been trapped in the valley for more than 100 years, and only the old patriarch is still alive. Gu Shijiu nodded. Yes. Yi Ling turned the glass in his hand. He smirked and casually asked, "The few people who escaped this time are his children?" Gu Shijiu looked closely at his fingertips and focused on his little finger. She replied, "No, he only has a son. Unfortunately, his son was killed by a beast." Yi Ling squinted his eyes. A faint cold light seemed to flash across his eyes. Oddly enough, he was smiling. He is a patriarch, but he still let his only son get killed. He is really useless. Does he argue with his wife? His wife has passed away. Gu Shijiu had never seen her before, but the old patriarch said that his wife was a former maid. Yi Ling spun the cup in his hand again. "I see. Your patriarch is really unfortunate." Gu Shijiu did not speak further as she felt rather confused by the governor's reaction and responses. In short, he was somewhat strange. The two of them drank a few more cups of wine. Yi Ling would often stare at her intensely, however, all of a sudden, he let out a laugh. "Miss Gu and Mr. D don't look like people in our world." Gu Shijiu smiled but said nothing. Indeed, their appearance was different from the people in this city. The people here had deep eye sockets and a very tall nose. Although they had fair skin, it was not as pure as the two foreigners in the land. "Where do both of you come from? How did you get into the valley? We are just a couple of people who were affected by a natural disaster. Why would you ask about our background? As for the valley, it just happened that we wandered around there. Yi Ling stared at her for a long while and suddenly let out a laugh. There is a wizardry barrier in the valley, and it is difficult for outsiders to enter. I find it strange that two of you would end up there. Gu Shijiu also laughed. It seems that you are aware that there is a wizardry barrier that seals the valley. Have you been there before? I have passed by that area before when hunting. However, I didn't expect that there would be so many people trapped inside. It is even more unexpected for someone like you to be trapped there. Gu Shijiu swayed the wine glass in her hand. Everything is possible. Yi Ling suddenly sighed. Miss Gu, actually you look like someone I know. Who do I look like? My wife. Gu Shijiu was speechless. It was such a lousy trick to flirt with a girl. She smiled and said politely, I am honored to look like her. She then raised her glass and toasted to Yi Ling. Yi Ling naturally would not refuse. Gu Shijiu probably drank a lot of wine, so it was not unusual that she would put more force into the toast. She actually cracked Yi Ling's wine glass and the wine sprayed onto his body. I am sorry. Gu Shijiu apologized and took out a handkerchief to wipe his hand. When she wiped his hand, she also wiped the gloves that Yi Ling wore on his hand. Gu Shijiu finally noticed something odd about the pinky finger on his right hand. Yi Ling's eyelids blinked uncontrollably. Everything seemed to have happened too quickly. Miss Gu. He raised his hand and wanted to hold Gu Zijia's hand. However, Gu Shijiu quietly withdrew her hand, so Yi Ling grabbed his own hand instead. Chapter 2191. Forced Marriage 3. He gently sighed. Miss Gu is so beautiful. What is your plan for the future? You should know that this city is not suitable for living. The majority of the people you brought in can only live at the lowest level in our city. Gu Shijiu replied. I will do everything in my ability to make sure that does not happen. Yi Ling smiled. Miss Gu's ability is indeed powerful. Under the rules of Luohua City, you can get the post of general and get a big house with servants. However, it is only limited to both of you. In Luohua City, we have a strict hierarchy rule. Although you can get a house, the servants inside would be delegated by the city. You can't use your own people. Those villagers can't be your servants. They can only work according to the rules of Luohua City. In other words, the men from the village had to work hard under harsh conditions while the women must be slaves or even prostitutes. Yi Ling looked at her with eyes as sharp as a knife. This is the rules of Luohua. Except for the owner of the city, no one can violate it. Gu Shijiu bit her lips slightly and suddenly smiled. Although her skin was not in good condition, her facial features were still beautiful. When she smiled, it felt like how the flowers blossomed in the spring. What can you do to accommodate my requirement? Yi Ling looked at her with a pair of red phoenix eyes. Then he slowly said, Be my woman. Gu Shijiu raised her eyebrows involuntarily. I will only fulfill a request from my woman. Gu Shijiu remained silent. Wouldn't it be too cruel? What about your loyal subordinates? They have done so much for you. Do you not fulfill their requests? Yi Ling smirked. I only treat them like dogs. As long as he gave enough meat and bones, he would never be worried that they would rebel. Besides, no one could challenge him. Gu Shijiu sighed. What you said can really break the hearts of your subordinates. If they pass the message out. Yi Ling interrupted. They won't pass it out. He looked back to the two women behind him. The two women were pale. They barely smiled to express their loyalty. My master, rest assured, we will never leak anything from the conversation out. Yi Ling smiled, raised his hand, and took 2 glasses of wine over. Good, these drinks are for you. The two women glanced at each other, and did not dare to pick the glasses up. Yi Ling's face turned serious. What's the matter? This is a reward for your loyalty. Are you afraid that I will poison you? The two women immediately kneeled, and said they did not dare to doubt their master. They both reached out and took the wine to drink. The two women's faces turned green, and they died on the spot. Yi Ling did poison them, and it was the legendary poison referred to as die in 3 steps. It was not even 10 seconds after they had consumed the drink that the poison started to affect them. The two women fell to the ground, and only had time to shout once. In the next second, they could no longer move. The poison was so potent that it was more effective than cutting someone's head off with a knife. It was such a poisonous drug that Gu Shijie could not help even if she wanted to. She was still sitting there, holding a glass of wine in her hand, but she had cold sweat all over. Yiling looked at her slightly pale face and smiled. He said softly, "Only the dead will really keep secrets. I can only be assured by the dead." Gu Shijie raised her eyebrows again. "Were they not your women?" Yiling shook his head. "Of course not. They are just slaves. There are fewer than 5 women who can be my lady. Shijie, you are one of them." "What a bastard." Gu Zijie's fingers were secretly pinching a spell in her sleeve, but she still remained calm and composed. "Thank you for your offer. Unfortunately, I already have a partner by my side, so I can't accept your good intention." Yiling disdained. "You guys are still unmarried. Even if you cancel the marriage arrangement, no one would say anything. In this chaotic world, a woman should marry a good husband so that she can live comfortably. In my heart, he is the best candidate to be my husband." Gu Shijie interrupted him. Yiling was stunned. He sighed. "Miss Gu, you will regret it." Gu Shijie stood up. "I will never do anything that I will regret. If you don't have any other matters to discuss, I will need to excuse myself." She then turned to leave. "I will give you 3 days to consider," Yiling added before she left. Gu Shijie did not turn back as she left the room. Yiling stood there, looking at her back slowly disappearing. He smirked as he whispered to himself, "You will come back begging." His eyes narrowed, and he suddenly clapped his hands. "Come." A shadow seemed to come down from the ceiling. 2 people appeared in front of Yiling. They kneeled and asked, "Master, what is the order?" The blood rain was still pouring heavily. Gu Shijie was walking alone along the street. She was still considering what to do. Yiling was indeed the servant that the clan leader had in the past. According to the old patriarch, his servant was only relatively good in terms of his talent and skill. Even if he practiced for more than 100 years, he might not be able to reach a level 6 spiritual power. However, he was now at level 9. What had he done to have such a breakthrough? This person was indeed sinister, but would be considered as a formidable person. Despite being a lousy leader to the many heroes and talented masters that came to this city to take refuge, many of them were willing to abide by his rules. But why? He should have something unique in his hand, and that was why people let him be the city owner. What was he holding? A gust of wind passed by, and Gu Shijie suddenly felt a chill. She hugged her arms and contemplated that living in this place was far worse than the original village. Although she now had some spiritual power, it was only level 6 or 7. It was nothing compared to the other masters have resided here. Difui, on the other hand, had his spiritual power restored to a maximum of level 9, which was the same level as the city's owner. However, so many masters served the city's owner. Most of them were level 7 or 8. Thus, if it was not necessary, Gu Shijie did not want to cross the man. Especially under the circumstance where she did not know the background of the city's owner. It would make things even worse if she had a face-to-face conflict with him. After rejecting his offer so bluntly, she was concerned that this man may lash out his anger on the innocent villagers. Gu Shijie had a headache thinking about the many possible outcomes. She massaged her eyebrows to relieve some of the pain. She had been using her brain a lot over the past few days as compared to 6 months ago. God damn it. She did not want to care so much. If the city owner really did something unfavorable to the villagers, she would try to take the villagers out of the city to find a new home. According to what Zhao Fengxing had shared to her, there should be other cities that they could go to. All the owners of the various cities couldn't be as cruel and perverted as Yiling, right? Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. Unfortunately, it seemed that the nearest city was about 1,000 miles away. The interval between the blood rain was only 10 days. It would certainly be challenging to carry 100 people for 10 days, unless she could find other temporary shelters to see out the blood rain. Would there be shelters along the way? She kicked a stone to the side of the road, and suddenly, there was a hand on her shoulder. Baby, what are you thinking about? Why are you so frustrated? Gu Shijio suddenly turned back and saw Difui standing behind her. He was smiling at her. Chapter 2193. Treated him as her husband as it was already late at night. The lanterns decorating the nearby shops were at half their brightness. Difui stood in his dark robe that fluttered in the wind. The light drew a faint silhouette on him. He was not wearing a mask, and his smile felt like a spring breeze. Gu Zijia's heart naturally skipped a few beats. Although she was really close with him lately and they seemed inseparable, she was still attracted by his handsome face. Every time he smiled at her, she would feel her heart pound in her chest. Earlier, Yiling had asked her what was so good about her fiancé, and what made him better than Yiling. She just smiled and answered that they were both very different people, so it was unfair to make a comparison. However, looking at Difui now, she was reminded of the clear differences between them. Difui was elegant, and it came naturally to him. Yiling was nowhere near as graceful or charming. It was clear that he was putting on a show. You are the most handsome person. Gu Shijio held Difui's hand and put her head on his shoulder. No one can compare to you. Difui did not expect to be so enthusiastically praised. He felt that it was funny, but he was still happy to hear it. He raised his hand and caressed her hair. Why have you said this all of a sudden? Perhaps no one could compare with him here, but what about Huang Tu? Difui wanted to ask, but of course he would not do such a silly thing. Gu Shijio did not answer his question, but took his arm and walked side by side with him. She could not help but sigh. Fui, how did I get you to be my man? He was so handsome and smart. On top of that, he was always kind to her. He was the perfect man to her, and she still could not believe that he was hers. She always thought that it was too good to be true. The person she loved was by her side, and she could be entirely dependent on him. There was no other man in her heart. Even though they were not officially married, she treated him as her husband. Even Difui felt as though he was dreaming. It was a sweet dream indeed. Although the environment here was significantly worse compared to heaven, Difui did not hate this place. If he could be with her, then it was a paradise for him. He secretly hoped to stay here for a few more days. Gu Shijio suddenly remembered the old patriarch and was worried that he would be attacked, so she went to the hut to look for him. The old patriarch was still alive and well. This made Gu Shijio heave a sigh of relief. She sat and talked to the old patriarch for a while. The old patriarch was also thinking about her, and he was relieved to see her alive. He could not help but ask, Shijio, is the city owner my servant from before? Is he new? Gu Shijio pondered for a moment before answering. She decided to tell him the truth. It should be him. The old patriarch sat in stunned silence. He did not want to believe it. Gu Shijio understood his feeling. Anyone who faced this situation would wonder what went wrong. Chapter 2194. No one could replace him after the old patriarch had sat for a while. He suddenly stood up and wanted to go out to get some air. Are you going to find Yiling? I suppose you would want to ask him about your father? Difui was holding his arms and standing nearby. His two sentences managed to stop the old patriarch for a second. Yes, since this matter had developed to this stage, Hua Jichuan wanted to know what happened to his father. Yinu definitely knew something about it. Do you think he will tell you? I just want to know the whereabouts of my father. I don't care about anything else. Just because you don't care, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care. If you go and find him, he will know that you recognize him. Since he used to be a slave, do you think he wants to let people know about his past? Do you think he will keep you alive until tomorrow? But there is nothing else to say. If you still want to live, then pretend that you do not recognize him. Stay here safely for a few days and look after your people. Regarding your father, I will help you investigate, and I will give you a fair explanation. Difui interrupted him. After the adventures over the past few days, The old patriarch had been extremely trusting in Difui. He tried to calm himself down. He was a smart man and fully understood Difui's intention. Yi Nu seemed to be a different man from the servant who was once loyal to him. Being reckless here would cost him his life. Once the clan leader was calmer, Difui shared the insights from his day. Gu Zijia's heart sank a little. There were now more than 100,000 people in this city, including 80,000 who lived in poverty. They were mostly servants who had to work for 15 to 16 hours a day, yet they did not have enough to eat and could not afford proper clothing. They lived in the slums. The rich in the city could merely scold and beat them. Even if they killed the poor, no one would dare to say anything. The other 20,000 people had spiritual power, above level 3. Most of these people needed to go out and hunt beasts daily to get a spiritual crystal. Every time they went out, they needed to get at least one gem. Otherwise, they were not allowed to enter the city again. If someone was seriously injured outside, they might as well stay there because Luohua City did not accept injured people. Those with level 4 spiritual power were soldiers. They would be given a house and have a better lifestyle than those less powerful than them. Those with level 6 of spiritual power would be the guards of the owner of the city. They would be given servants, beautiful women, and a mansion. They could live a luxurious life. All these people owned shops, and each of them was unique. It had both necessities and luxury goods for the people. As they were all monopolies, the prices were extremely high. Even with the savings earned after working for a month, the luxury items were still out of reach to the common people. There were many foreigners in the city these years. Many of them were high in spiritual power, and were very capable. Of course, these people were unwilling to be the subordinate of the city's owner. Many of them wanted to replace him, especially because many people hated him. However, no one could touch him, because he made the wizardry barrier that blocked the blood rain and bloodbaths, and no one else could replace it. Chapter 2195. Will not give other men a chance to get close to you if they killed him. The wizardry barrier would be broken, and the city would be abolished entirely once the blood rain poured. Of course, some people that reached level 9 spiritual power also studied the wizardry barrier, and wanted to replace it. However, after studying it for a long time, they found that they could not replace it. Zhao Fengxing frowned. So the city's owner cannot be killed? Difui replied, he can't be killed for now. Zhao Fengxing's eyes brightened. Mr. D, you have a plan? Difui stood up and said, you have to be patient for a few days. Aside from preventing the women from being prostitutes, everyone must follow the city rules and make sure that Yiling does not catch any mistake. Everyone should follow my orders. Okay. Everyone listens to Mr. D. Gu Shizhou sat next to him and sighed in her heart. This man was born as a leader. He was like a mountain that gave the people around him infinite power and courage. As long as he was around, any storm or bad weather was not important. He was so influential that people would naturally still follow him. The two of them came out from the Fengxue hut, while Zhao Fengxing and the rest of 12 people sent to guard him stayed in the hut. They stayed here because it would be more convenient to take care of the old patriarch. Secondly, there were 3 empty rooms in this hut, and there were beds in the rooms. It was much better for them to stay here than outside in the tents. Originally, Gu Shizhou also wanted to stay in one of the rooms. However, when she just expressed this thought, she was dragged out by Difui. It was already late at night, and the blood rain in the sky finally stopped. The bloodbaths were not in sight either. Therefore, the wizardry barrier on top of the city had been taken down. The city's people could now see the stars and the big round moon. It was a beautiful sight. The two walked side by side on the road. Sometimes the moonlight shortened their shadows. Other times it elongated them. Regardless of the length of their shadows, one thing was constant. They were never separated. What do we do now? Do you want to observe the house of the city's owner at night? No. We have to rest for tonight. Tomorrow, I will hunt for a spiritual crystal. I will go with you. Gu Shizhou volunteered. Difui could not help but smile. Are you worried about me? The fierce beasts that possessed a first-grade crystal are too powerful. I think it would be safer for us to work together. Gu Shizhou was indeed worried for him to go alone. It's all right. I already know their weakness and how to hunt them. There will be no accidents. You can stay in the city and take care of the villagers. If we both go out, I am afraid that Yi Ling will do something harmful to the villagers. That was true. Gu Shijiu leaned on his arm and advised him. Then you be careful, okay? Of course. I will come back safely and will not give other men a chance to get close to you. Difui kissed her cheek, and his arm held her waist even tighter. Although the environment was still dangerous, Gu Shijiu felt happy. She also looked up and kissed him on his cheek. I will wait for you. Difui was comforted by her response. It would be good if she continued to treat him this way even after she gets back her memory. Chapter 2196. Do you want to be separated from me? If Gu Shijiu regained her memory, it would be unlikely for her to treat Difui in the same manner. He would be lucky if she did not kill him. The two of them did share an intimate moment, and she really liked him now. Perhaps she would be able to calm down after some time? After all, Huang Tu had died, and he couldn't be resurrected. Hence, he could win her heart back. Although he could not participate in her past, he wanted to accompany her in her future. He did not care who she loved in the past. He only cared about her present. Gu Shijiu walked together with him for a moment, and suddenly realized that this was not the way to the civilian area in the south of the city. She was somewhat shocked. Where are we going? Let's find a place to rest. But shouldn't we go to the civilian area? She remembered that the villagers left her a tent. I have found somewhere else. Gu Shijiu remembered his beautiful white tent. Are we staying in the white tent? Where did you place it? No, my white tent is too eye-catching. I want to keep a low profile now. Let's go to the inn. Well, it was okay to stay in the inn. With Difui's fussiness, he would definitely not be used to staying in the humble homes in the civilian area. There were a snowy white wall, clean and luxurious table and chairs, and a light blue curtain. Instead of staying in an inn, it was more like a big house of the rich. Everything in it was the best quality. Even the curtains were as soft and silky as satin. Gu Shijiu touched the soft bedding and could not believe it. The bedding here was brand new and had never been used. Something was not right. Staying in such a luxurious place was going to cost a lot. Especially in this presidential suite-like room. Where did he get the money from? Gu Shijiu asked him this question. Difui took her to sit down at the table, and gave her a cup of warm milk. This inn is opened by a new friend of mine. We can live here before we leave the city and don't have to pay for it. Gu Shijiu remained silent. He had wandered around for less than 2 hours. How did he manage to make such a friend? When she walked with him to this inn, she knew that it was not in the downtown area. It was located in a relatively quiet place. From the outside, this inn did not look outstanding. However, she never expected the interior to be so beautiful. The boss had greeted him face to face. He looked like a gentleman of noble status. Gu Shijiu initially thought that the owners of all the shops here were bastards like the city's owner. Hence, she obviously did not expect the man to be so kind. It seemed that there were still good people in this city. As she thought the misconception, she subconsciously drank the milk in her hand and finished it unknowingly. Difui took away the cup in her hand. Okay, it's not early anymore. We have to rest early. Go take a bath now. There was a bathroom in the house with a big bathtub inside. There was already filled with hot water inside and ready for someone to use it. Gu Shijiu suddenly came to her senses. Was it appropriate for them to stay together since they were still unmarried? She got up and decided to be more reserved. I don't have to sleep here, right? I should go back to the civilian area where I have a place to live. Difui grasped her wrist and smiled at her. Do you want to be separated from me? Chapter 2197. You have exposed yourself. Difui had exerted a good amount of force to pull her back. His ocean-like eyes wooed her into his embrace. Gu Zijia's heartbeat rapidly rose. Thus far, she only shared one intimate moment with Difui. After that, they had been busy moving around. Although they stayed together all the time and often fought side by side, There was no opportunity for them to share a moment together. It was evident what Di Fuyi's intentions were at that very moment, but Gu Shijiu seemed to want to retreat. She was actually in pain the night they shared an intimate moment, especially when they were both connected. Furthermore, she had an uncontrollable feeling that night, which made her lose her mind. It made her very uncomfortable, especially with the uncertainty over her forgotten past. Gu Shijiu was finding the right words to help her escape the situation without hurting his feelings. Good girl, go and take a bath. You have been traveling for the whole day. You stink. Di Fui raised his hand and touched her hair. Gu Shijiu replied, It's not me that stinks, but you. I can smell you from here. She then deliberately rested her head on his shoulder and took a deep breath. Ah, so smelly. Di Fui pulled her to the bathroom. Then we should proceed to the bathroom together to freshen up. Were they really going to shower together? Gu Zijia's heart continued to pound in her chest. She withdrew her arm. I don't want to bathe with you. Are you a badass? Di Fui turned and looked at her. What did you say about me? Where did you learn this word from? The word sounded foreign to Di Fui. How did she know about it? Gu Shijiu was also stunned. She did not know how she came up with this word. It seemed to pop up naturally in her head earlier. Recently, a few things often flashed in her mind. She had a vision of meteor-like objects moving around in the sky. However, before she could see it clearly, they disappeared. After Di Fui brought up the topic of her past, she could not help but think about it. There seemed to be a picture that appeared in front of her. A cute little boy with soft skin was gazing at her awkwardly. He was almost naked. You are a woman, he said. A black-clothed grimace person glanced at the boy and politely reminded him, You have exposed yourself. The little boy looked down and found that he was naked. His face instantly turned red. You badass. Just as the scene was getting more explicit in her mind, she looked up and suddenly found herself standing in the bathroom. Di Fuyi's fingers were already undressing her. What are you doing? Gu Shijiu could not help but question. You called me as badass, right? I am going to show you how badass I am. Di Fui was smiling as he said those words. Do you want to take off your clothes yourself? Or would you like me to take it off for you? He obviously did not understand Gu Zijia's current predicament. He thought that she was just shy. After his first experience with her, he had naturally wanted to do it together with her again. It was the most intimate thing between a husband and a wife. Seeing her actively pursue him during their first attempt, he thought she was very open in this matter. Perhaps he was mistaken. Eagerly, he pulled her back into his embrace. Perhaps you will like it more if I take off your clothes for you. Gu Shijiu blushed. She did not expect this guy's face to be so thick. Nonetheless, when his warm breath blew on her face, it made half of her face hot. Instinctively, she stepped back, and suddenly, a scene appeared in front of her eyes. Chapter 2198. Wanted to bathe together. There was a simple wooden hut in the scene with a man and a woman inside it. The man seemed to be drenched in the rain for an entire night. His entire body was soaked. This scene was extremely vague. It was so blurred that Gu Shijiu could not see the face of the man and the woman inside the hut. However, she could vaguely hear a dialogue. Why didn't you come to me? If I didn't look for you, you would have let go of me, right? The male sounded sad. I didn't give up on you. I have looked for you. I thought you had left to continue your meditation. I had searched through the village. Anyway, please take off your clothes first. We can talk when you are dry, okay? The woman wanted to take off his clothes. I am very upset. It is so easy for you to let go. Take off your wet clothes first. The woman wanted to undress him, but the man seemed to be drunk and rejected her offer. After some entanglement, both of them kissed each other. No, Celestial Masters Wa. Shijiu, call me by my name. Silly girl, what are you doing? When Gu Shijiu regained her consciousness, a hand had stretched out in front of her eyes. She was stunned, and the scene had disappeared entirely. Di Fui had taken off her skirt, and he probably wanted to take off her innerwear as well. However, he did not expect her to lose consciousness, so he tried to wake her up. Have we entered any village together before? Are you Celestial Masters Wa? Di Fui went stiff. What? Did I used to call you Celestial Masters wa? Di Fui remained silent. He was worried that Gu Shijie would have regained her memory. Did you recall something? Gu Shijie was distressed, and she shook her head. It's just a vague scene. I couldn't see the face of the person in the scene. Even his voice was not clear. All I saw was a woman calling a man Celestial Masters wa. They seemed to be in love, and they wanted to bathe together. Di Fui's face was getting pale. He looked at her for a moment before he spoke. Well, don't think about those messy things. You should take a good shower first. He turned around and left. Gu Shijie was speechless. As she watched the man leave, she had a feeling that he seemed to hide many things from her. Given how Di Fui had reacted earlier, she expected him to peek at her when she was bathing. In fact, she even felt that he might secretly join her in the shower. She certainly did not expect him to be a gentleman. After bathing, she found that he was sitting in front of the table. His finger was tapping on the table, and he seemed to be lost in thought. He looked a bit sad, which made Gu Shijie feel bad. She actually knew that Di Fui wanted to have intimacy with her tonight. After all, they had done it before, so it was reasonable for him to expect to do it again. Perhaps she had rejected him too harshly earlier. Hey, she greeted him in a joyful tone. He finally turned, and his eyes stopped on her. She just came out from the shower, and she looked extraordinarily beautiful at this moment. Her eyes were watery, and her lips were moist. It was the perfect time to kiss her. Since you have finished bathing, you can rest now. We will be busy tomorrow. Di Fui then headed to the door. Gu Shijie was stunned. Where are you going? I will get another room from the owner. It is just next to this room. If there is anything, you can just knock on the wall. Di Fui opened the door and went out. Chapter 2199. He can do whatever he wants. She did not want to care anymore. Gu Shijie was stunned by his sudden change of behavior. Soon, she heard the door open next door. Apparently, he really went to the next room. Was he angry? Was it because of her earlier rejection? She listened carefully to try to ascertain what had happened. However, the sound insulation here was excellent, and almost no movement could be heard from next door. However, she suspected that he was taking a bath. She sighed softly and did not feel right. This person was too proud. He had completely changed his attitude because she rejected his approach. Was it somehow because of the question she asked about the illusion she had? Although the picture in the illusion could not be seen clearly, she felt that it was the two of them in the scene. Unless the man in the dream was not him? But if the man were not Di Fui, perhaps he would at least have been more curious? Although she had no previous memories, she felt that she was not a flirty girl. She would never be intimate with any man that easily. She could see that she had been so close with the man in the illusion, so at the very least he was her fiancé. Could the illusion be just a dream? Or was Di Fui really another former fiancé? Had he come here to fool her and take advantage of her? No, Di Fui was not such a person. Although he was not always open and honest, he was definitely an outstanding man. There must be a lot of girls chasing after him wherever he went. Why would he waste so much effort to come and deceive her? Gu Shijie subconsciously looked at herself in the mirror. The girl in the mirror was beautiful, but she felt that there were more attractive women out there. After all, her skin was rough and wheat-colored at the moment. So why would Di Fui travel across the world just to find her? Things just did not make sense. Trying to distract herself from these thoughts, Gu Shijie sat on the bed and slowly dried her hair. She tried to listen to what Di Fui might be doing next door, but still did not hear anything. She then bit her lips and tapped the wall with her fingers. Knock, knock, knock. After a while, she heard a few knocks from the other side as well. Di Fui had recently taught her how to communicate using Morse code, so that they could keep their conversations private. Earlier, Gu Shijie had asked him, "Are you sleeping?" And the few knocks he returned were, "Going to I am sleepy." Apparently, he did not want to communicate with her anymore. Gu Shijie was rather unhappy with the turn of events. Was he too proud? Perhaps she shared the same sentiment. Frustrated, she covered herself with the quilt and tucked herself into bed. He can do whatever he wants. She did not want to care anymore. It had been a long day, and she was exhausted. She actually fell asleep in just a brief moment. It was late at night, but some people had not slept yet. City owner, Madam has asked you to go over. Yi Ling had just returned to his bedroom, and there was a report from the maid outside. Yi Ling knitted his eyebrows and rolled his eyes. He was impatient, but he still answered, "All right, I will go soon." Madam said that she wants to see you now. The maid did not give up. Yi Ling was obviously frustrated. He clenched his fists. "Fine. I will go now." Chapter 2200. Jealous? Are you qualified? Yi Ling got up and went to the backyard. Compared to the luxurious front yard, the style of the backyard was simple but elegant. The small building in the backyard was made with bricks. Along the pathway, there were green bamboos and a pavilion. There was a faint scent of herbs in the air. Two maids stood in front of the building. When they saw Yi Ling approaching, they bowed. "City Governor." Yi Ling nodded briefly in return. He pushed the door open and went into the building. Inside the building, there were dark purple curtains. Behind the purple curtains, he saw a woman dressed in white sitting on the bed. "Aluo, anything?" The white-dressed woman looked at him coldly and did not speak. She had a sort of cold temperament, which was mysterious and scary. Yi Ling did not dare to make a sound. Instead, he tried to smile. "What happened? Are you calling me here just to see me?" Shwa! The sleeves of the woman suddenly flew over and hit Yi Ling on the face. It was as if he got a massive slap. The woman finally said, "Yi Ling, you seem to have forgotten your identity." Yi Ling paused, raised his hand, and touched his cheek. "Aluo, I definitely remember my identity." He sounded like a young kid who was speaking to his parents with respect. "Why did you kill Lung Feng?" Lung Feng was the city's officer. Yi Ling sighed. "Lung Feng broke the rules of the city, and I was forced to do so." "Liar. I heard that you were trying to impress a woman." "There is no other woman in the world except you. Aluo, you have wronged me." "Humph, you would know better if I had wronged you or not. Don't try to fool me." "Are you jealous?" "Jealous? Are you qualified for me to be jealous?" The woman spoke softly, but her words here sharp as a knife. Yi Ling sighed but did not talk. The woman seemed to be somewhat intolerant today. She said coldly, "Yi Ling, don't forget your identity. The so-called husband and wife status is just a means to an end. You are just a slave in my eyes. All your powers and abilities are given to you by me. If you leave me, you will have nothing." "Yes, I understand." Yi Ling still looked down as he responded, "You don't have to pretend to be so good in front of me. Do you think that I don't know what you have done outside? I just don't care about these things. As long as you don't delay my business, I will leave you in peace. However, today you killed my people just because of a girl? Are you looking for death? Don't you want to be the city's owner anymore?" Yi Ling sighed. He now knew that his own affairs could not be hidden from her. He admitted what he had done. "Aluo, I am just playing around. There is no other woman in my heart. Regarding the woman who entered the city today, I am not doing it out of my own lust. She has a strange capability. If we can pull her to be with us, she could be our right-hand man. It is so rare for you to praise people. It seems like the woman's ability should be outstanding. How good is she as compared to me? She is only level 6 or 7 in terms of spiritual power, so she definitely cannot be compared with you. However, her qing gong is very strange. Despite being hundreds of feet away, she can somehow travel at the speed of light." Chapter 2201. You can marry whoever you want to seek. A cracking sound was heard as a piece of gauze in the woman's hand was torn into pieces. "What is the name of the woman?" Yi Ling replied. "Her companions call her Stone." "Stone?" The woman in white was stunned. She grasped the gauze in hand tightly. How can someone so skilled carry such a bandit name? Yi Ling smiled. They come from the wilderness, so the name is naturally very down to earth. The rest are called Tai Dan, Tai Niu, Chun Chao, and so on. Stone is the daughter of their patriarch. The woman frowned. How does she look like? She looks 18 or 19. She is pretty, and her skin is of a healthy wheat color. Why? Aluo, do you know her? Of the entire group, only the patriarch was born outside the valley. The white-dressed woman frowned again. A glimmer of light seemed to flash in her eyes. Was it just a coincidence? I heard that the old patriarch claimed to be the son of the former city owner Hua Jichuan. Yi Ling smirked. Many people have pretended to be him over the past few years. However, this man looks very old. His hair is all white, and his face is full of wrinkles. The woman in white faintly said. Then this time it may be true. If Hua Jichuan were still alive, he would be almost 140 years old. If he does not have spiritual power to protect his body, he should look like this way. You better be careful. After all, his father died in your hands. Yi Ling did not care. I doubt that this old man is Hua Jichuan, but even if he is, what can he do? He is just an old man who is going to die. Oomph. Just do not take him for granted. Aluo, are you trying to express care for me? Oh, don't think so much. I just don't want you to delay the big project. I see. Aluo, please be assured, I will live well and support the city. There will be no mistakes. That better be the case. You can go now. The white-dressed woman impolitely asked him to leave. Yi Ling got up, and suddenly thought of something when he walked to the door. He said, there are two groups of people who came here today. There is a man in one of the groups which is particularly powerful. He acquired the spiritual crystals for the entire group. This man is a little bit weird, but his martial art seems to be very good. He will go hunting for a grade 1 spiritual crystal alone tomorrow morning. The woman was not interested. Good. When the master comes, our spiritual crystals will be more abundant. You should retain him well and don't let such a talent go. I understand. Yi Ling turned and headed to the door. How does the man look like? He was wearing a mask so I couldn't see his face. However, when he came, he wore a purple robe similar to mine. The white-dressed woman went stiff. What is his name? She seemed to speak louder than before. I don't know his name yet, but his companion called him Mr. D. The woman remained silent. Yi Ling waited for a moment but did not get her response, so he said again, Aluo, I want to marry the woman named Stone, can you? You can marry whoever you want. I don't care as long as you don't delay our big project. All right. Gu Shijia was probably too tired, so she slept till the next morning. As soon as Gu Shijia opened her eyes, she realized that she was dreaming just moments ago about going to heaven. She remembered that she was looking for someone. Also, there was something about a mission. She raised her head and rubbed her temples to calm herself down. Her intuition told her that those were her memories. Therefore, to get her memories back, she had to remember the dream. However, it was all scattered and too blurry for her to recall everything at once. Di Fui once told her that the time would come for her memories to come back to her. So, she should not pressure herself too much. Too much stress would not do anything good to her brain, anyway. Thus, she stopped trying. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click www.webnovel.com for visiting. She rose and cleaned herself up. Then, she went and knocked on the door of the room beside hers. After a while, there was still no answer from the room. Puzzled, she could not help but wonder if he had left the city. Even if he had to go, Gu Shijia assumed that he would have told her about it first. She tried to push the door open by force, but it remained shut. Was he still resting in the room? Miss Gu, are you looking for Mr. D? Politely, the owner of the place approached her from the staircase. Yes. He left before dusk. However, he did leave you a message before he went, asking you to take care of the people, and that he would return in 3 days. She was not aware of his early departure. Certainly, she was not expecting him to leave so swiftly without even telling her. The door seems to be locked from the inside. Could there be an intruder in his room? Gu Shijia fixed her eyes at the locked door. Before Mr. D left, he made a reservation for these 2 rooms, one for you and another one for him. He must have placed some special mechanism on that door so that outsiders cannot go in. There is nothing to worry about, miss, the owner reassured her. Gu Shijio heaved a sigh of relief. I see. I was worried that someone might have invaded his room. Food was provided for Gu Shijio at the tavern. After breakfast, she returned to the place where the villagers stayed. As soon as she arrived, she realized that something was not right. Most of the villagers were absent. Only 3 people stayed behind. They were all elders. The 3 elders saw her coming and felt as if hope had returned to them. Stone, you are finally here. Stone, please save the villagers. What happened? Where are the others? Gu Shijio suspected that something was terribly wrong. This morning, a group of violent soldiers came and took our food away. They did not even leave any water supply for us. They told us to work if we wanted to live here. Otherwise, we have to leave Luohua City. The soldiers have taken our men to some kind of meeting for work, saying that they would be assigned with different tasks. Even the children had to go with them. Gu Shijio was puzzled, but not quite surprised about it. After all, there was no place for a jobless man in the city. Everyone had to contribute. It was unavoidable. What about Chun Chao and the girls? Gu Shijio was concerned about the girls. Not sure. They were taken together with the group. What was the most tiring job in Luohua City? It was to extract stones in the quarry. Every piece was in the shape of a big, green stone with ranging sizes from hundreds of kilograms to a ton. These stones were carried on the backs of the workers. Sometimes alone, sometimes a few men together. The stones were required to restore any damaged walls or to build fancy new homes. Tai Dan, Tai Nyo, and their men were sent to the quarry early in the morning to carry out the worst job they could ever imagine. When Gu Shijio arrived at the quarry, she saw her people working tirelessly with a heavy burden on their bent backs. Sweat soaked their clothes thoroughly, and they trembled while taking each step. Chapter 2203. The torturous whipping of other men did not bother them. The tasks were manageable for Tai Nyo and the men his age. They were still young and energetic. As for the people who were 60 and above, the weight of the stones had certainly become unbearable for them. They walked in a tottered manner. One careless step would shove their weak knees to the ground. Unfortunately, relentless supervisors guarded the place. They beat anyone who was slow, especially those who fell. Gu Shijio saw an old man struggling to get up from the ground. His knees were bleeding. Before he could get on his feet again, the supervisor started to hit him. He got hit in the face, and blood started oozing down his head. The old man got dizzy, so he fell to the ground once again. He groaned in pain with the weight on his back and spat a mouthful of blood. Why are you acting? Get up now. The supervisor wanted to beat him again, but before he could move his whip, sharp pain at his wrist stopped him. He felt as if a knife had slit open his flesh. Who? Which bastard did this to me? The supervisor was obviously infuriated. As soon as he saw her, he took a few steps back. Gu Shijio moved the stone away from the back of the old man and helped him up. He was very obviously injured, and there was still blood on the corners of his mouth. Tears rolled down his eyes as soon as he saw Gu Shijio. Stone. They had not suffered as much, even in the valley. Tai Nyo and his men wanted to help, but they were prevented from doing so by the supervisors. These supervisors were harsh. They would beat the villagers at their slightest resistance. Furthermore, their whips were specially made to torture. Every strike would cause a great amount of pain. The supervisors all possessed spiritual power of level 3 and above, so their strength was not to be taken lightly. Tai Dan and his men were strong, but only physically. They stood no chance to rebel against the supervisors. There were a few times where Tai Dan and Tai Nyo tried to fight back to help those villagers in need. As a result, they were all violently caned. Each of them had scars that ran the length of their bodies. Certainly, the villagers did not dominate the quarry. There were dozens of other people around. These people were already used to the whipping. They carried the stones around numbly. The torturous whipping of other men did not bother them. The supervisors had always been arrogant. As soon as they saw another supervisor being bullied, they quickly came with their whips to help. Who is this wild woman? How dare she hurt our men? They screamed at Gu Shijio. Gu Shijio was not in the mood to argue with them. Instead, She fixed her gaze on a whip that she wanted to acquire. Utterly surprised, they looked at Gu Shijie with their eyes wide open. Gu Shijie did not explain herself. Instead, she picked up the whip on the ground and started beating the supervisors, each with 5 whips. Every strike was intended to hurt, so all 5 of them started rolling on the ground and warping their faces in pain. Unfortunately for them, they could not even make a sound, as Gu Shijie had sealed their acupuncture points to prevent speech. "Miss, you cannot hurt them. They will put the blame on us. If we die from the beating, they will not be punished. A few men already died because of them." One of the workers put down his load and fearfully told her. All 5 of them looked at her in indignation. Their mouths moved, but nothing could be heard. Nonetheless, being a trained assassin, Gu Shijie could read their lips. She knew what they were saying. Even if they could not do anything to her, they could still release their anger on these innocent workers. Gu Shijie laughed. How could she be the leader of her people if she could not even deal with a few supervisors? She raised her arm and slapped these supervisors on the face. Chapter 2204. Finally, it was a joyful ending. The supervisors got on their feet and picked up their whips. "Bitch! How dare you?" They surrounded Gu Shijie and were ready to give her a lesson. However, before they could swing their whip, a sudden sharp pain stopped them. They felt as if there were countless needles on their skin. Sweat broke out from their forehead rapidly. You cannot use your strength at the moment. The slightest pressure will break the vessels in your arms. If you persist, all your vessels will break. You may proceed with the whipping if you do not intend to keep your arms, Gu Shijie explained. The supervisors were shocked. They started sweating even more. Gu Shijie took a step back with her arms across her chest. "I do not intend to kill you. I do not intend to interrupt your work as a supervisor, either. As long as you keep the whips away, you will be fine." Under the current circumstance, they dared not proceed, even though they were not entirely happy about it. One of them was not willing to submit. "How long will it last?" Gu Shijie showed them 3 fingers. 3 days. One made a guess. "No, 3 years, Gu Shijie said slowly. Their faces sank, and they almost fell to their knees. Gu Shijie said smilingly, "For the next 3 years, you are not allowed to use your spiritual power, which means you will be no different from the workers. Think about it. If your direct superior found out about your condition, would he send you to work as well, or let you continue supervising?" The supervisors looked at her in all seriousness and asked, "What do you really want?" "Simple. You can continue your job as supervisor. These people will not tell anyone anything about your injury. In return, you have to treat them better." Certainly, the workers would not tell anyone about it. If a new batch of supervisors came to replace these ones, they would have to suffer again. Hence, they had to find a way to work peacefully with the people here. After the commotion ended, the workers continued to work. They still did their best but were not pushed beyond their limits. As long as the workers behaved themselves, they would not really care about them. Finally, it was a joyful ending for both parties. Gu Shijie asked Tai Niu about the girls who were not around, only to find out that they had been brought to another place. It was a palace of great luxury. The food was splendid. Yi Ling sat alone at a long table enjoying his food. There were 18 dishes on the table. Each and every dish was exquisite. Behind him stood 2 young ladies. They were gently massaging his shoulders and fanning him. His life had been quite free and easy. However, he wanted more. He wanted Gu Shijie, the girl who acted like a wildcat. He was waiting for her to come and beg him for mercy, since he sent the men to do the worst jobs, and the women to become prostitutes. He knew that Gu Shijie would not let her people suffer, as she really cared for them. She could only beg him, as there was no other way. He had to make her understand that there was no way that she could resist against his power on his territory. She had to obey him, so her people could have a better life. Chapter 2205. Plotting against one another. At the thought of her people, he could not help but think about Hua Jichuan. The look in his eyes darkened, as he proceeded to hold his glass of wine in contemplation. The aged man was no longer in his charming youth. He deserved it. "Governor, the old man is here. He is waiting outside," a voice reported. Yi Ling was delighted. "Send him to clean my room." Surprised, the servant added, "Governor, the old man seems to be stubborn and unruly. Also, he is old and dirty. I am afraid that he will only dirty your room." Yi Ling gave him a cold look in the eye. "How dare you go against my order?" The servant dared not say anything more. Promptly, he was ready to leave and do as told. "Let him clean up the mess in the yard. He has to weed the entire garden. Tell him that I will kill him if I find any remaining grass in the premise," Yi Ling added. "Yes." The servant left. Yi Ling continued to enjoy his food but was soon dispirited, so he asked his men to clear the table. "Governor, Miss Stone has requested to see you." Another servant came reporting. Finally, Yi Ling could not hide his smile and said, "Let her wait for a while." He had to make her know that she was not the one in control. "Yes." The servant answered and left. Delighted, Yi Ling picked up a piece of meat and was ready to savor it. However, a sudden movement caught his attention. A woman appeared before his eyes all of a sudden. He recognized the icy look in her eyes, as well as the pale pink color of her lips and the beautifully tanned skin of hers. She was none other than Gu Shijio. She stared at Yi Ling fixedly. "Governor, please forgive me. I cannot wait any longer," Gu Shijio said with an icy tone. There was a complicated look in Yi Ling's eyes, but he kept his smile. "It does not matter. Since you are here, please have a seat and share the food with me." Hesitantly, Gu Shijio sat down at the table as told. "Great. Thank you, Governor." Yi Ling asked for another set of cutlery and an empty plate for Gu Shijio. Then he poured a glass of wine and offered her the drink. "What is the matter?" "My people can work the worst kinds of jobs that require their physical strength, but not as prostitutes." Gu Shijio finally found Chun Chao and the girls. They were sent to work at a brothel. Gu Shijio managed to threaten the bouncer at the brothel and ask for the release of the girls. However, the pimp had no authority for their release, as the girls were sent to the brothel under the governor's order. If the bounder took the matter into her own hands, the governor would definitely kill her in the most brutal way. Therefore, she would rather die in Gu Zijia's hands rather than the governor's. However, the pimp also told her that the only way for the girl's release was to beg the governor. If Gu Shijio were willing to beg the governor for their release, the pimp would make sure that in the next 2 hours, Chun Chao and the girls would not have to entertain any clients in the brothel. Thus Gu Shijio came right away. With great pleasure, Yi Ling took another sip of wine and said, "Under the law of Luohua City, for women at the age of 30 or less, unless they possess a certain level of spiritual power that enables them to gather spiritual crystals, they will usually end up either as prostitutes or concubines or even slaves. There is a problem though. The generals of high reputation only prefer girls with fair skin. The women from your village are generally tanned and rough, so they can only be prostitutes." He made his point fair and clear, with a strong sense of righteousness. Gu Shijio pursed her lips in dismay, for she finally realized how powerful the governor really was in the city. She rose to fill his glass of wine as an act of respect. "Governor, what should I do to make you release them?" Yi Ling fixed his eyes on her. "You know what to do. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."